Yeah. I got to say this. Yeah, I'm up watching, still watching this right here. So I got to record this just like this. Black Jesus Minister, Black Jesus, Uncle Ruckus Minister. Yeah. Was checking him out right here. He's talking about this video right here. Have this on pause right here. You know, I'm at the, what is it? The 1 hour and 42 minute mark in this area. He says a lot of things. He goes at, oh man, hold on for a moment. I just moved. I moved it right here. Okay. Oh, okay, right here. Now, Sarnetta likes to, you know, he likes to hype there, right there. He likes to hype, you know. But here we go. I want to share this part right here with you. Let me get it right around the part. He's talking about the mixed multitude. And it's obvious that Black Jesus Minister have been checking out our videos as well. You know what I mean? Or at least the content. So I never had to even say something that people been learning from him. I saw when he went into some things, but even we had the Rastafari sabbatical. We already had touched on that. We didn't get a lot of like traffic or audience or whatever. I mean, we got a good share on the old channel. You know, we're building up on the new rate here, RastafariJews. But here. Watching this video is called it's called Bishop Black Jesus Minister says the Edomites and Esau are Israel. Now, to some of what he's saying right here, there's some things that we do agree with, but, you know, some of those ad hominem, you know, he's talking about pedophilia and, you know, ISUPK and the slave servants thing and the chart. Okay, you know, we've already been saying about the ain't right and the half-right Israelites. Been saying that for a couple of years. The Talmudim, the disciples, you know, the fellow co-laborers already know that. But right here, he is wrong about this right here. Right, this part about the mixed multitude. We see he gets in this mixed multitude, and it's like the mixed multitude section. He's trying to make a point, basically. I get the point he's trying to make, but, you know, he's like a New Testament Christian now trying to be like grounded in the Old Testament, but you really have to study the Old Testament. You know, I hear you with Fopi, and when Simon asks you a couple of questions, and he's like, oh, they're learning from me. I get that bravado, rah. You know, Black Jesus, Uncle Ruckus Minister. But here, he's wrong. Let me just share this right here. Let's see if you can hear this right here.
And the children of Israel also wept again. And the children of Israel wept again and said, who shall give us flesh to eat? That's when they were complaining in the wilderness.
No. Actually, that there, Black Jesus, Uncle Ruckus Minister. You know, I say Uncle Ruckus. You kind of remind me of, I don't know if anybody else sees that too. But anyway, he goes to, okay, where is it? Deuteronomy? No, he's in Numbers 11 and 4. Yeah. So he goes through some verses in the scripture, right? He goes through some verses in the scripture where it speaks of mixed multitude. He's seeking to make the point, well, we already done make the point that Esau was not the white man, right? But nobody listened to I, Ras, you know, Rasiadonis, Yadin, LOJ, you know, the Lion of Judah. You know, the Lion of Judah. You know, nobody listens to the Lion of Judah, but still, we're tearing them. It's the information. Those who have truly been paying attention already done know. I give thanks to the brothers and sisters also who've been checking out. We try to pack in the information, like, you know, into the vids. And yeah, sometimes might seem like we kind of ramble a little bit, but as one become more conscious, one can see the connection, can see the fabric, you know, the fuller fabric of, you know, the fuller picture. Because we have to zoom in and then zoom out, you know, zoom in on the details and then see it in the context. And hearing a lot of other ones talking about context and reading comprehension. You know, it's like, definitely he must, you know, Mr. Blanche, George Blanche, a.k.a. Black Jesus Minister must have come across that. And I use a pseudonym. This is actually a full name change. So when we give the white man, you say Ross, he say Ross, so we say yeah, all right, you know, because can't call him by my personal name, Yadin. That's for my brothers and sisters especially. But yeah, even the point on abhor, right? Ones and ones know we was one of the first to bring that point forward, talking about the hate of the Edomites, so-called pseudo-white men, according to like One West camps and so forth and so on. And we brought that verse out, abhor. Might have taken, seemed like a couple of weeks to maybe a couple of months before we start to hear a few ones on, you know, Sarnetta actually kind of mention the same thing. Not Sarnetta at first, but some of his guests. And now we see like ones like Black Jesus Minister, he's going more into that, so forth and so on. All the ad hominem attacks, Well, I guess if he's called to do that, he's called to do that, right? So we've been liking, some of the excitement. But here he goes into a couple of areas. Let's see if we can do this. We're going to do this like really kind of hopefully tight and right here. Let's pull this up right here because we like to bring in the scripture, even ones and ones, getting into some of the interlinear software. Some of them have to go to like the websites, the web pages, but we have the app right here. So let's go to mix, right, and multitude. Mix and multitude, right? So the point that okay, here we go right here. Let's go back here. Multitude, right? Multitude, right? Yeah, gotta spell it out, right? Boom. So here we have Exodus. So here's the three places. Here's the three places he went to, right? The first place in Exodus 12 and 38, and a mixed multitude. I think he's going to go into the word multitude because multitude really brings out like the rab sense, like the enoughness, and the mixed part brings out the Arab or Arab, like Arab, the Arab. You hear like the people from the East who speak more that, oh, to Black Jesus Minister, the Shemites were black people too. Stop with that little silly shat. I get what you're saying, but you're kind of defending that Blanche. You're defending that white Anglo-Saxon Protestant Christianity. If you talk about the Israelites, making up some fake stuff, making people believe and doing evil or going to do evil, you need to talk about some of those Gentile Christians. I know you do, but keep it balanced. But here, the Arab, right? Mixed multitude went up, right? Also with them, and flocks and herds and very much cattle. So he pointed to that, the first verse. So we got the video on pause right here, on still right here. If we want to share this part, gonna have to add the power cord, right? We're up, with Isha Sheli and Isha Eshet Oset, and I woman wife, and we're gonna check out some some series that we was watching and everything, but we got into the YouTube. Son will listen to it after the podcast and everything like that, or she'll be listening to something. I'll be like, who's that, what is it about? And tonight it was what is it, Black Jesus Minister says the Edomites and Israelites are Israel. You goofy as uck right there, but I get the point, the object lesson you're trying to bring forward. But when I heard this part, I was almost asking my woman, my wife, I was almost predicting what he's going to say. I said, oh, he's going to probably say this. And I was like, oh, man. Bringing up the Edomite and the Petra part, that was a good point right there. But here, Numbers 11 and 4, right? Believe it or not, the white man comes from Ham. We're going to go ham on this, but comes from Ham. Come from the black man. We know that from science, from DNA and genetics, recessive gene, dominant gene. But here, the second verse, right? And the mixed multitude that was among them fell a lusting, and the Bnei Yisrael, which literally in the Hebrew mean the sons of Israel, also wept again and said, who shall give us flesh to eat? So the mixed multitude started to, what they say, bitch and moan, and then the sons of Israel started to bitch and moan. This scene here reminds me of Abraham. Abraham is called out of Ur of the Chaldees. So naturally, Abraham takes his woman and wife, but then Lot comes along. Lot is his nephew. And then Lot turns into be a lot of trouble. This mixed multitude too, right, is a bunch of mixed ones. He's trying to say these are Hamites. All these are Hamites, or like Egyptians, you could say Mitzraymites, Mitzraymites, but no, it's not so. Right? But when he read over this verse, it kind of waffle and waver a little bit, because if he glides over the point. And the mixed multitude that was amongst them. Now the mixed multitude here, right, is the Apesuf, right? Here uses the rabble. Almost like when you talk about these and those Israelites, convict, hood rat, right? Well, this is like the rabble that came up with the Israelites, right? So he kind of glosses over this particular point right here, but it's interesting, just the first part, and the mixed multitude that was among them fell a lusting. Fell a what? Ava, right? Ava, ta'awa, awa, ta'awa, right? And fell a lusting, right? They wanted lust and covet, have strong desire. Like some have the desire to be like the head of all the Israelites and everything like that. You know, these kind of lusts and desires can come in many different ways. Or to eat unclean food and then try to excuse it by a pseudo New Testament counterfeit Christianity and then blackface it. You know, they do things like that. This is kind of like the lust and it's talking about, and this starts to affect the real, you can say, Israelites, the Bnei Yisrael, right? So that they start, it's like monkey see, monkey do. Right, because the mixed multitude started to lust, the children of Israel started to lust too, right? And they cried out. Now, when he gets to Nehemiah, it's obvious that he is not, you know, he's a half original Israelite. Basically, he's a Christian, right? Who's an Israelite? We can say by blood, right? Israelite by blood. Hold on for a moment right here. I just hit something right up here because we're like in a comfy zone right here. Usually don't record vlogs like this right here. You're just holding the phone and and have the other phone here. Let's just give you a little bit of the audio right here in the background, and then we'll comment.
Before they made it to the land of Canaan to take the land over, Nehemiah 13:3. Now
it's obviously not strong here, right?
So now the mixed multitude is what I want you guys to understand, and this is the Israelites leaving Egypt in the Exodus, being led by Moses. All right. So who is the mixed multitude? Mix means mix, y'all. Mix means mix, y'all. And let's see where we're going. Here we go. We just read Exodus 12:38. Here it is again. Numbers 11:4. And the mixed multitude that was among them fell a-lusting, and the children of Israel also wept again. And the children of Israel wept again and said, who shall give us flesh to eat? That's when they were complaining in the wilderness before they made it to the land of Canaan.
Pause here. He's glossing over this. Maybe he doesn't really fully grasp it. Anybody who fully grasps it can bring it out. Right? Like he can bring out New Testament things because he's a New Testament Christian, basically. You know, black Christian, so forth and so on. Hamite, all of that, you know, all stirred up together, right? That's his way. That's his flavor, his brand. You know what I'm saying? Baskin Robbins, right? But he can't really bring it out. He don't want to really point that this mixed multitude is bad news. He's trying to defend the mixed multitude, right? Because if he's a little more grounded black Jesus minister, you know what I mean? If you are able to humble yourself, you can really, I think if he really was able to connect the dots. Now, when he gets to the next quote, right, I could almost say that's all she wrote, but then we get Sarnetta. I want you to hear Sarnetta in the background quickly right here.
Take the land over. Right. Nehemiah 13:3.
This is commentary.
Now it came to pass when they had heard the law that they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude. Okay?
You see how his voice changed, how his tone and his voice changed. That's at the 1 hour and 39 minute mark of Bishop Black Jesus Minister says the Edomites and Israel, the Edomites and Esau are Israel. He's crazy as he's going against the word of the Bible where it says two nations, two manner of people. Yeah, this is my brother here, but he's another kind of person. But he's my brother. You know, same mother, same father, but he's a different manner of person, right? And his peoples are different peoples. See, a lot of them go to the part not to abhor, you know, Esau or the Edomite because he's your brother. But if you notice, they don't zoom in on the fact that he can't enter into the congregation until the third generation. That means father, you have your son, grandson, great-grandson, until like the great-grandson's generation can he enter into the congregation. That means he cannot worship with us. That's what it means about congregation. So he's off on this because a lot of ones don't really have strength in the Old Testament. It's because of, we can say, the Israelite movement. Right, the Israelite movement, which goes past the 1970, 70 AD One West camps, and we trace our roots to the royal order of the Ethiopian Hebrews, the commandment keepers, congregation of the living God. This is where I, you know, our roots, even as a Judahite, so-called black American, as a Negro American, a Judahite. Yes, Rastafari, new name, precious name. But first of all, before we even get to the new name, one has to have a foundation. Right, the foundation, the groundation. So here in Nehemiah 13:3, this was his third, right? When he gets on this point to make his presentation, this is the third point. Now, you notice his voice wavers a little bit. Let's rewind it for a moment right here.
That's when they were complaining in the wilderness before they made it to the land of Canaan to take the land over. Nehemiah 13:3. Now it came to pass when they had heard the law that they...
Pause. You heard his voice, because remember, these New Testament Christians, even some of the better ones like the Black Jesus Minister types, when they came across that word, the law, you could hear this. When he came across that word law.
They made it to the land of Canaan to take the land over. Nehemiah 13:3. Now it came to pass when they had heard the law that they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude. Okay?
Now he's trying to get his reasoning. I don't think he expected that verse. I don't think he proofread that verse or was familiar with that verse. Now this is Nehemiah, Nehemiah, right? Nehemiah, right? The comforter, the comfort of Jah, right? The comfort of Yah. Now, what's interesting, he's not familiar with this verse. He seems to believe that this is right after, because, you know, this is how a lot of New Testament Christians, when they read the New Testament, they think they can read the Old Testament the same way. Pop to a verse over here, pop to a verse over there. But there's a context. So he took this particular subtext right here, but doesn't understand the context. And it's like he believes that this part right here is like a little after the Exodus, right? He doesn't know that this part in Nehemiah, historically and according to the chronology, is more than 1,000 years later. It's like between 1,000 to maybe 14 to 15, say a good 1,400, roughly 14 to 1,500 years later, Nehemiah, after what is in the previous Exodus and Numbers section. So here we have like 1,500 years. He's still talking about the Israelites, that these are going to join up the mixed multitude of the Hamites. They're going to join up with the Hamites and going to enter in, you know, to help to fight, because they believe in Jah and Jehovah, and they believe in the God of Israel. But it's not so. Here as he tries to understand it on the fly. Listen.
Yeah. Brothers and sisters, they separated the mixed multitude at some point.
No, it says, now it came to pass when they had heard the law. When they had heard what? Torah. Right? Because a lot of New Testament pseudo-Christians that be following the blanche, the whitewash, you know what I mean, too heavy, even though they're proud to be black, but they like half original. They still are half original. They still got like that virus, the systemic anomaly in them, right? That they can't really see this fully right as full Israelites, right? That's why they have to say they're a little bit of this, they're a little bit of that, they're a little bit of the other thing. That is not how the covenant is made with Yisrael. It's exclusive with Israel, right? Let's be real about Israel. So it's when they had heard the what? When they had heard the Torah. The same thing that real Israelites speak about, the Torah, right? When they had heard the Torah, that they separated from Yisrael, from Israel, all the mixed multitude, right? And look what the word is, the Arab, or Arab. Arab can be pointed as Arab, like the Arab, and the Arab, right? The mixed interwoven, the mixed company. That means they could be mixed, maybe part Israelite, part something else. They could be also mixing the ideology, like they do a little bit of Torah, then they get a little bit of chematology and Kemet, they do a little bit of Egyptian. That's what happened with the molten calf, because they were mixed up moods and attitudes, right? But notice what it says, the second form right down here, right? The mongrel, you see a mixture, mongrel race, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It has Arabia, but notice the word Arabia there, mingled people, mixed multitude, right? It's like a lot of these people say they're a little bit of this, they're a little bit of that. When you say, well, we're Israelite, I'm an Israelite, but I'm also a little bit Kemetic, I'm a little bit of this, I'm a little bit of that, this and that. These are the mixed up ones that when we come out of this all together, right, away from this thing, and we're in, it's like a wilderness together, you know we're going to have problems, because some of them want to do a little bit of Jah way, and then mix it up with like a little bit of Kemetic way, and they want to be a little bit of pseudo-esoteric, right, pseudo-esoteric, you know, and all this mixed up stuff, mixed up moods and attitudes. But notice what the verse says. It says that when they had heard Shemaah Yisrael. Here. Listen to one more time.
Wept again and said, who shall give us flesh to eat? That's when they were complaining in the wilderness before they made it to.
But and that's like ones like Black Jesus, Uncle Ruckus Minister. They be complaining too here in this wilderness of North America when one's the one said about the pork and the unclean foods. They'll try to make believe that the New Testament is saying what they want it to say, but not what it truly says. It says the foods that God, that Elohim created to be eaten. The ones that he created some foods to be eaten, created other animals to keep the environment clean. You know what I mean? Like you're not going to eat the garbage can, you know, like you're not going to eat the wrapper, you know, you're going to eat what's inside, you know, and then you're going to throw away the bag, right? But anyway, it's interesting that he points to this verse about the mixed multitude lusting for flesh, like a lot of these ones still lusting for pork and pig, and they want to claim that they Israelites. Okay.
12 and 38. Here it is again. Numbers 11 and 4. And the mixed multitude that was among them fell a lusting, and the children of Israel also wept again. And the children of Israel wept again and said, who shall give us flesh to eat? That's when they were complaining in the wilderness.
That's when you were complaining, because he's trying to defend that the mixed multitude are these Hamites. And maybe you're going to say they're Edomites too, these mixed multitude. But see, where we catch them there is on the abhor part. Now remember, we brought the abhor part before, like about 10 or more years ago, when they was talking all this hate. And we say, wait, hold on for a moment. It doesn't say abhor. It was in one of the sabbatical studies, going through the Torah readings and feedings, and we did a vid on that. But now, here, on this whole mixed multitude, right? On this whole mixed multitude thing, he cut himself because they'll say, well, Edom is our brother. Yes, the Torah says that Edom is our brother, but he cannot enter into the congregation, the edut or edut in the Hebrew, right? Like the Aron ha-edut, the Ark of the Testimony. It's a testimony. It's those of us who stand in the court to bear witness to Hashem's sovereignty, the sovereignty of Yahweh HaKadosh Baruch Hu Baruch Hashem, right? So the Edomite cannot enter until the third generation. That means the Edomite cannot enter until his, son? No. His grandson? No. At least until his great-grandson. So they cut themselves. I mean, the Israelite can have his Edomite brother amongst him, but we don't worship together. Maybe his grandson, his great-grandson, can worship with, say, our great-grandson, but we can't worship together. Not that first come Edomite, right? So here.
Yes. Before they made it to the land of Canaan, to take the land over. Nehemiah 13 and 3. Now it came to pass, when they had heard the law, that they separated from Israel.
I love that pause right there. You hear that pause, right, after the law. Here we go, once again.
And the children of Israel wept again and said, who shall give us flesh to eat? That's when they were complaining in the wilderness, before they made it to the land of Canaan, to take the land over. Nehemiah 13 and 3. Now it came to pass, when they had heard the law, that they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude. Okay? Now, brothers and sisters, they separated the mixed multitude at some point in time, right? Either when they reached Israel or sometime before they reached Israel.
Pause. Either when they reach Israel, he don't even know that Nehemiah is about 14 to 1500 years later. Nehemiah is a period of time after the Yehudi, after the black Jews of Persia, that remnant had returned in the time of Cyrus and Darius. The prophecies of Cyrus and Darius, when a small remnant had returned in the time of Ezra. Ezra was first to return. Then after him came Nehemiah or Nehemiah. Nehemiah came forward. So this is not speaking about when the Israelites were about to go into the land or after it was coming to the wilderness. See, he thinks it's all together because he searched these three verses, right? Exodus 12 and 38, right? Numbers 11 and 4. And then he stumbles right here when he gets to Nehemiah 13 and 3. And I listened. I said, wow. He's not going to zoom in on that part when they had heard the law. So they separated. Because see, they learned from their experience. The Israelites learned from what happened in Exodus 12:38. Okay, a mixed multitude, they went along to get along, right? And then out in the wilderness in Numbers 11:4, Bamidbar, the mixed multitude that was among them fell a lusting. Right, and you know, they said one fool make many, monkey see, monkey do, and the Bnei Yisrael also, like word also, wept again. They wept again, they bitched and moaned again, and they said, who shall give us? So now they want to speak up for the mixed multitude. See what happens? You're supposed to be the leader, but you're actually following those who will be following you, and then after a while, they're going to lead you back into what? Egypt? All right, anyway. Nehemiah 13:3, now it came to pass when they had heard the law. So before they heard the law, anything went. Before they heard Torah, you know, mixed multitude, cool, you know, we all the same thing. But after they heard the law, they separated. The key word, they separated, right? They separated from Yisrael, all the mixed multitude. We're going to seal up right here, but hear him stumble and fumble along on this one right here.
Okay? But now, the main thing I want you guys to focus on is the word mixed multitude.
No, the main thing he should have us focus on is when he had heard the law, right? Okay, we'll bring a New Testament verse into it. Faith comes by hearing, and hearing by what? By the word. The word. The 10 words is the law, right? But he says, brothers and sisters, this is what I want you to focus on, because he cut himself. You know, like somebody trying to be slick, like they have a knife in their hand and they spinning it around like a switchblade or whatever, but they cut themselves, but they kind of hide the fact that he cut themselves. But you saw they cut themselves. I see he cut himself.
And so we see here, what? Look at Nehemiah 3:13. Now it come to pass, when they had heard the law, they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude.
Okay, come with it.
They separated the people who were not Israel that was with Israel. Do you understand that, Sarnetta?
Do you understand that? Like he's teaching Sarnetta and so he's speaking to the audience, and you understand that audience. Put a 1 up, or 2 or 7 or whatever else like that. So he's asking Sarnetta, right? Okay, come on.
I need your feedback, brother. I hear you, brother. I'm listening. Okay. It says, now it came to pass when they had heard the law that they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude. They separated the people who were not Israelites from the Israelites. Do you understand that? You're teaching. Okay, so who were these mixed people? Who were these mixed people who were not Israelites, who were entering into the land with Israel? Who were they? Who were these people, Sarnetta? Let's read, brothers.
Well, let's pause. Who are these people? I don't think he's going to bring this out right here. We saw up to that point, we said we had to record something. First of all, he's acting like the Israelites were entering into the land after returning from the captivity. This is like 1,500 years after the Exodus. 14 to 1,500 years after the Exodus. So these are people who are trying to return with the Judahites, the Judeans, the Yehudi, the Jews, the black Jews from Babylon, from Persia, with them. These are people that they had got to meet out in Persia, in Arabia, you know, among the so-called Shemitic nations, not among Mitzrayim, not among Ham, not among Kemet. This is not the same thing. But let's just hear a brief of what he's going to say here.
Sisters. We're going to read, and the scripture is going to tell us who are these mixed people who left out of Egypt in the Exodus, who followed Moses, who worshiped the God of Moses.
Pause. You see the verse before where it talked about the mixed multitude fell a lusting, and then the children of Israel fell a lusting. The mixed multitude, oh man. The mixed multitude could not enter into the tabernacle. They maybe, if they were worshipers, they could worship from a distance. They could not enter in. This guy is just confusing things. And on this point about Edom and Esau not being a white man, okay, stick to what you're good at. But let's see now he's going to go from Nehemiah and he's going to scroll all the way back. You have to remember the Israelites coming out of Egypt in the first quote, right? The first quote that we have right here, that's the face I'm making too. The first quote that we have right here, Exodus 12:38, at this point, there was no law. There was no Torah, the Torah of Moses, right? They did not reach Mount Sinai, so there was no Torah, right? You know, and it's over here, Nehemiah, 1,500 years later, They're learning from their previous mistakes. He's making it seem as though, the Hamites or other nations that came out, that all of them were worshipers. When it's clear when you're reading the Torah, when it says who may worship, it speaks about the children of Israel exclusively. The other people basically are coming along, I guess, to get along, you know what I mean? But as far as worship, it specifically states the children of Israel. That's why it says that the Edomite, right, can't enter into the congregation until the third generation. That's until like the grandchildren. And
who was in the wilderness with Moses, who suffered in the wilderness with Moses.
Stop your lying. They suffered in the wilderness. They was causing things. We just see the verse where they start to bitch and moan, and the children of Israel start to bitch and moan. That's why in Nehemiah, they said, oh, you remember what happened in the law? You remember what happened before? Now you bring along these other people, right? He's just confusing the whole matter right there. While he picks up little points here or there from our vids or other ones' vids. You know what I mean?
Lord have mercy. You going in, bro.
And see, Sanet always does this right here. He always does this right here. He's really going in because he's making a point, and the way he's trying to make the point, the Black Jesus Uncle Ruckus minister, it makes Saul believe that, oh, wow, so these other people, the Camites, they were on the same level as the Israelite. But then when you get into the details of it, just like I'm pointing out that Nehemiah is not a part of the Exodus narrative. Nehemiah is a return from captivity almost 14 to 1500 years later. But here's Saul big him up.
At the same time, this mixed multitude followed them to the land of Canaan, and they followed Joshua and formed an army. And this mixed multitude was part of this army, including 3 to 5 Canaanite kings. This ain't sign that are talking. All of these people.
Wait. Did he just say there were 3 to 5 Canaanite kings that joined with the Israelites to drive out the Canaanites? Check. Okay, this is about to go off right here, right now, right here. Let's just do this right here.
People are Hamites. This ain't sign that are talking. Hamites. And these Hamite people worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as they left Egypt following Moses.
Now he's lying. He's lying straight out his teeth. He's totally lying. We can show you, ask him to show you the verse about the Israelite woman who had a Kemetic, Egyptian man. They had a son, and he's the blasphemer. We have his story right there. He's the blasphemer. He's the example of the blasphemer. Hey, Black Jesus Uncle Ruckus minister, check yourself on that right there. I know you're not. You got that ego and everything, but you off on this one right there, on that. Trying to make a certain point. It's almost like you're trying to, belittle those who the Almighty has chosen, and that's the children of Israel, right? And that's the black people who are Shemitic, right? Even Afro-Shemitic, right? Anyway, we're going to pause on this right here on the outro.
And they became, who did they become? When they got there, what did they become? You going in, baby.
Yeah, he's like going into a bottomless pit.
Going in. People became the nation of Israel.
This guy is lying out his teeth. Like, he has some flimsy stuff to work with, but you can see where he really he busted up, he twisted his ankle, he didn't even recognize it at the Nehemiah. And he doesn't understand it. He thinks it's a part of the earlier narrative. Then he thinks of the mixed multitude, right? He should ask some of the other people who study this, Jews or Israelites, besides the black ones. Anybody, even some of the white Christians who study it, the mixed multitude is nothing to say rah, rah, rah about. And it's not just saying they were mixed because they were Hamitic or they were from Egypt. No, there was a whole bunch of mixed people. It's like people who want to join. I liken it sometimes to like Rastafari. I'm gonna liken it to that, ones and ones, right? Until they find out, well, what it's really about. Oh, I like the music. Oh, I like the marijuana. I like the organic food, like the ITIL food. I like the food. I like the music. I like the colors. I like the dreadlocks. But then when they recognize what it's really about, they then recognize they have to kind of get off the block, you know what I'm saying? And that's what happened to the mixed multitude, right? I'm going to follow up on this a little bit more, right? Black Jesus Minister, yes, this is Yarden.